Welcome to the Elgin-Middlesex-London All Candidates debate for the 2022 provincial election. My name is Paul Jenkins. I'm the CEO of the St. Thomas and District Chamber of Commerce, and I will serve as your moderator this afternoon. It's important that I begin by thanking our generous sponsors, the London St. Thomas Association of Realtors, the Elgin Business Resource Centre, and St. Thomas Economic Development. That's LSTAR, EBRC, and STEDC, if you're into abbreviations. But in any case, thank you so much. We couldn't have done it without your support. Thanks too to the team at the historic CASO Station for playing host to us all, and James Meadow Catering for the awesome snacks. Quick plug for the St. Thomas and District Chamber of Commerce. Our member-driven organization represents more than 500 local businesses and nonprofits who call St. Thomas, Central Elgin, and Southold home. We're a powerful organization that creates connections, builds communities, helps give small businesses scale, and advocates on issues critical to our membership. So in terms of the latter issue, I'm basically referring to an event like tonight, where it's your community's business leadership making something like this happen. Moreover, the Chamber, our local chamber, is a proud member of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, where together with 156 other chambers of commerce and boards of trade representing more than 60,000 businesses across the province, we serve as an indispensable partner of business. So as such, we are excited to be joined tonight by our aspiring elected representatives from 7 of the 8 parties running here locally. Andy Crocker is on the phone, just based on, but we're leaning into the technology. So everyone officially, I just want to let everyone know that everyone that was registered to be elected was invited to participate today. This was intentional. If you put your name on the ballot, you deserve a voice. So congratulations and thank you for everyone for doing that, being here tonight. Yeah, sure, round of applause for that. Before we get any further, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Lenape, and Haudenosaunee people, the original entrepreneurs of this land. Tonight, I'm pleased to welcome Bridget Belton of the Ontario Party, Rob Fleck of the Progressive Conservatives Ontario, Heather Jackson of the Liberal Party, Andy Croker, who couldn't be with us in person, but again, he's this phone right now, of the New Democratic Party of Ontario, Malachi Mele of the Consensus Party, Matt Miller of the New Blue Party, and Dave Plum of the Freedom Party, just sitting to my right. So the purpose of tonight's All Candidates debate is ultimately to share concerns and questions from the business community, but a few ground rules for debaters and participants alike. And actually, one of our sponsors who's in the room today wanted the following to be the first question, and I do agree with this in sentiment, but it's more of a statement than a question. And that was, is it possible to conduct this debate without criticizing the current party in power or each other, but instead tell me what you're going to do rather than what they did wrong? So in short, all right, didn't build in any applause for any of this, but good. So in short, we are here to get to know you as people and want your ideas. In any case, there's a lot of us, there's a lot of questions, a lot of material to go through, so please be succinct, be on point, be respectful, and let's ultimately have a really good discussion. Let's have a good, robust debate, and let's remember to focus on the importance of our dynamic local economy to every aspect of our lives. And so none of you may be right, but one of you is going to win. And no matter who it is, I look forward to working with you to advance the interests of local businesses in creating a thriving, dynamic, and welcoming community. We're going to start by getting to know each candidate by asking them to each the same rapid-fire questions. This is, and we're going to get started here shortly, supposed to be a fun way to get to know our candidates. Then we've shortlisted the best and most important questions we received from membership, which, if they are here in person, we will request that they ask themselves. Candidates are given 90 seconds to respond to the issue and then 30 seconds to provide a rebuttal. Christy over here, there's a lot of pressure on the timing aspect that I farm that out. Christy over here, we'll do our best. We recognize we're all people and we want to get our ideas and we're passionate, and clearly you're here for a purpose. But we will do our best to keep you to those times. We drew numbers from, I was going to say a hat, but from a glass jar, randomly at the start to determine the order of who speaks before taking the stage. It's Dave, Andy, Heather, Rob, Bridget, Matt, and Malachi. As we go through each question, we'll just move everyone back a note. Otherwise, I wanted to point out we probably have time for about 7 questions. I've got 6 already teed up, and then we've been sharing little paper slips like this. If you have a question that you think we should ask, please provide it to Sean Dyke at the back of the room before 5 o'clock. We do have room for that 7th question, so we'll try to make it as meaningful and as impactful to the business community in particular as possible. And ultimately, and I make no apologies, but ultimately, we won't be able to get to every question, and priority will be placed again on questions that most importantly impact our local business community. So again, we are here to build a better community where families and businesses thrive, and I hope everyone taking part tonight can agree on that broad sentiment and then perhaps more passionately argue the details. Any questions from any of you guys up front here? All righty. So we're going to get going, and we're going to start with Dave. So Dave, if you want to get your microphone ready, a little pressure on you. Excuse me. If you can just start off, sir, by telling us a little bit about yourself, but not by talking about politics.
Okay, I was born in London, lived there till I was 6 or 7 years old, moved to Dorchester, where I went through all my public schooling and high school. I was in the last graduating class from Dorchester High School, because right after I graduated, they changed the name to Lord Dorchester Secondary School. I'm not sure if there's any relationship between those two events. Went to university for a few years, got a Bachelor of Science degree with a biology major. Got married, lived in London in an apartment for a couple of years, saw some land in Belmont in 1979 that we bought. 6 acres for $25,000 if anybody's interested. Looks like a pretty darn good return on investment now. And I guess that's, in my working life, I was mostly in transportation. Done just about everything in trucking, third-party logistics, warehousing, anything to do with the supply chain. The last several years I worked for a healthcare consulting company as a senior data analyst. That was a lot of spreadsheet work mostly. And in more recent years I've become interested in climate and climate change, which is a big issue with the Freedom Party. I've published a couple of books. This is the most recent one. It's sort of the Coles Notes version of my first book, and if anybody's really interested, I've got about 20 extra copies. You can see me after the meeting, and I'll just give them out at this point. I guess that's it.
Dave, thank you so much, and I appreciate. I got a follow-up question for you, real quick. But obviously, we're a free enterprise organization, so pitching your wares is not necessarily out of scope. Now that said, you're running. Can you let us know the party you're running for and why you're running for that party in particular?
Okay, well, I'm running for the Freedom Party because I believe in freedom, and basically I'm going to be a contrarian voice at this debate, although since we can't really question or criticize the people we're supposed to be debating, I don't think it's really very much of a debate, but we'll carry on.
All righty, I'm going to grab the microphone. So be patient with us right now. We're going to try to do our best to incorporate Andy into this, and we're quite literally holding up an iPhone to a microphone, so that's what the world's come to. Andy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself without talking politics?
Sure. Hi. Thanks for accommodating me. I tested positive COVID on Monday. Turned out to be a false alarm, but I had something else. So thanks to Paul and everyone for accommodating me. I hope to meet you someday. My name is Andy Kraker. I've been the executive director at West Elgin Community Health Center for the past 12 years. I've been in healthcare overall for about 20 years. I grew up in Ottawa. I was one of 8 kids, so I learned early on to be satisfied with what I had and to try to make the world a better place. I went to university in Ottawa, and that's where I got my interest and passion for taking care of the environment. I've been, in previous careers, I've also worked in municipal transit. I worked for the Elgin County Board of Education briefly, just before it merged. And my wife, Louise, and I, we've been married since 1990. We've raised 2 kids. And about 7 months ago, I became a grandfather for the first time.
Awesome. Congratulations.
So,
And then, can you tell us the party you're running for and the reason you're running for that party?
Yeah, so I'm running for the New Democratic Party, the NDP. As I said, I work in healthcare, and I've seen over the past 2 years with COVID what can happen if we actually work together and find new ways to work together. And I'm also concerned about climate change and the fact that we need to act urgently now to deal with this issue for our kids and our grandkids.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. We heard you at the very least. Heather Jackson, tell me about yourself. Don't talk politics.
Okay, I won't talk politics. So I'm Heather Jackson. I am the candidate for the Ontario Liberal Party. And the reason I am running for the Liberal Party is because I believe strongly in the platform and the plan that has been put together over 2 years of consultation with the public and building an entire new Ontario Liberal team. We all know what happened in 2018, so it's great to have a new party that is able to bring fresh ideas, and it was all done through community engagement. So I believe strongly in that plan. I was born and raised here in Elgin County, grew up just beside my grandparents' dairy farm, where I spent a great deal of time as a child, to the point where I had a broken arm when I was a kid, and when the cast came off, my arm was solid green. To which the doctor almost fainted because he thought something had severely gone wrong. And it was just silage, is what I kept telling him. It's just the stuff we feed to the cows. And I understood why my arm was so itchy. So certainly spent a great deal of time there and playing in the Kettle Creek watershed with my siblings and our friends. I am the very proud aunt of 12 young nieces and nephews, 10 of whom live in this province. And I am extremely concerned for their future and what it means. Affordability is out of control in this province. We are, we have a running joke at our family Sunday dinner on which of my nieces and nephews is going to move into my house and who's going to still live at home and who's moving in with grandma and grandpa, because there's just so much uncertainty about their future. And will they ever be able to afford a home? Will they be able to raise their families here in this province? And I'm very proud to be part of the Liberal Party and have that plan that can make that happen for them. I have most recently worked for the United Way Elgin-Middlesex, raising over $8.5 million a year for the last 2.5 years that I was there, and really got to see firsthand the gaps in education and healthcare during the crisis and what it meant for folks that are already really struggling. For 8 years prior to that, I was the mayor of St. Thomas. I'm not supposed to talk politics, but I was the mayor of the city of St. Thomas and actually spent 15 years on city council. So I have a great deal of interest in this election and what happens for the future of our province.
Thank you, Heather. And you managed to mesh those two questions together. So, Rob, at this point, who are you? And without talking politics, and I guess who are you with talking politics at that point, too?
I'm Rob Flack. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a son. I'm a farmer. I'm a businessman. I live in Dorchester. My wife, Denise, just a couple rows back. And I have lived there since this has been Elgin-Middlesex-London, nearly 30 years. I graduated from the University of Guelph in 1979 in agribusiness, and I started with a company called Master Feeds as a sales trainee. I liked the business, I liked agriculture, and it was good to me, and I was good to it. And a number of years later, I became the youngest CEO ever and moved to London in 1986. And I've been there in the London office, traveling the country, building a business. Been very active in our communities. Obviously do a lot of business in Elgin County and Middlesex County, dealing with farmers, buying grains and ingredients, and in turn selling feed back to livestock and poultry producers. Very active in charitable works, whether it's Crohn's and Colitis Foundation for Southwestern Ontario and Camp Trillium. Also started the London Bishops' Dinner with a good friend, and what else, Denise? Lots of other things on the go. Been very active in our community, again called Dorchester our home for many, many years. I'm a farmer. Our farm isn't here, but it's in the Ottawa Valley, so I have a great interest and passion for agriculture, all parts of our sustainable food system, and I'm proud to be a candidate here today.
Thank you, Rob. All righty, you're going to have to pass the microphone right over to...
Do I get to tell you why I'm a progressive
Oh, sorry, I
conservative?
wasn't sure if that you meshed those all together, but let us know.
I didn't think I did. I tried to talk nothing about
All right,
politics. I'm a Tory because a few basic reasons. Number one, I believe government is an instrument of the people. It shouldn't dominate and infiltrate your lives every day, and I think the brand progressive conservative in this province has always had that balance. I'm a progressive conservative because I believe in a modern and moderate and truly provincial party. And I'm a conservative because deep down fiscally, we need to keep our house in order so we can grow an economy and ultimately create jobs that are going to help people get into this affordability world in a proper way and live exciting lives.
All righty, tight. Bridget, please introduce yourself and tell us about you without politics.
You're asking for like the impossible.
Hey, do your best. Do your best. That's why we're here.
My name is Bridget Belton. I'm with the Ontario Party, and I'm here today because of a great separation between government and its people. I proved that by being on the Hill in January and February. Thank you for this venue. I feel like I'm back there. It's a little cold in here. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a grandmother of 6 beautiful babies, and the last one arrived on January 29th. Hopefully the last one for that family. I'm here in Elgin-Middlesex-London because my riding was taken. But this riding means a lot to my family, who has been in the riding since 1979 on a farm locally. And we do stay here for 6 months out of the year. We discovered Elgin-Middlesex, my husband and I, again, once we had to drive 4 hours to work in order to have affordable housing. So I know what affordable housing is like for you, and we live that. So we're here to help you. We're here to work with you, and that's why I'm with the Ontario Party. They have the same values, and they share the same interests and responsibilities that we do as the general public. So it'll be nice to see us all get back to working in unity.
Thank you, Bridget. Matt Miller.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Miller. I'm a third-generation family farmer out in Lambeth, where I've lived my whole life. The farm was started by my grandfather, who's going to be turning 101 in just after the election, and I probably won't be able to celebrate with him because he's in long-term care. And I also have a small tech support business. I like dealing with computers. That's kind of my passion outside of farming. And the most useful thing I learned in my university career was breakdancing. And as for why I'm running with the New Blue Party, they were really the only alternative that was planning to run a full slate that's actually a truly different option from all the establishment parties. And I'm definitely not doing this for myself. If I had to rank being here right now in this situation on a list of all the things I enjoyed, this would probably be right above getting my teeth pulled. But the reason I'm here is for my grandparents. As I said, they're in long-term care. They haven't been able to hug their family or see their great-grandchildren. I'm here for the people who died alone in hospitals, who are separated from their loved ones, or couldn't be with their loved ones as they passed. I'm here for all the kids who were forced to wear masks all day and got shut out of their sports and activities, and being saddled with unbearable debt in the future. I'm here for the worker who was told she's no longer welcome because of her personal health choices, and she doesn't know how she's going to be able to provide for her children without a job. I'm here for the business owners who watched the business they built from the ground up and invested their life into be shut down and crumble as they slowly had the life choked out of them. I'm here for the nurses and healthcare workers, the teachers, the truckers, anyone else who worked tirelessly through the pandemic, only to be kicked to the curb because they didn't agree with an anti-scientific mandate or they voiced their displeasure with the government. I'm here for those deteriorating at home because they couldn't get in to see their doctors or they had their procedures canceled. I'm here for anyone who feels ignored and shut out by the ones that were elected to represent them. I'm here for the Ontarians that have lost hope and don't see a future here for themselves and their children. And I'm here just to offer those people another choice and give them hope that there is something we can do differently and we can make a difference.
Thank you, Matt. And our final candidate here tonight, Malachi Mele.
How's everybody doing? Okay. My name is Malachi Malay. I was born in Uganda. While I was there, there was pretty much a genocide, war, infested everything. So my dad happened to actually work for the Ugandan army, right? And what happened was, in order for us to escape, he had to go AWOL, and you don't do that, right? So pretty much our life was, we're dead, you know? So what he did was, he actually smuggled us, walked to Kenya, and that took us, you can even imagine from Uganda to Kenya how long that is, right? So the benefit is that once we got to Kenya, we got classified as endangered refugees. They took us to North America only because he actually, on top of him working for the government as a microbiologist, he happened to actually be a professor. So because of his profession, we got classified as endangered refugees, took us to New York, took us to Canada. But unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way in the real world because as they were looking for us, the rest of my family got murdered because of him. So pretty much he gave up his whole life to come to Canada for democracy, right? So I'm running right now because of that. You know, I have no choice. And he told me one day, listen, Malachi, I got you guys here. Now it's up to you to get the rest of the individuals that couldn't make it with us, right? So ever since then, I did everything I could. You know, I happened to play sports in high school, was pretty decent, able to pay my tuition, finish university. I was able to get a record deal, Universal. I was able to open up a chain of stores, St. T, right here. And not only, it started off in St. Thomas, but it branched off in Ingersoll, it branched off in Rodney, Mississauga. But the best thing about it is it actually went global. So a lot of times when people see this brand, they think local, but it's not really a local brand. We sell thousands of hoodies and stuff in across the country, China, Europe, New York, everything, right? And it's all based according to people believing in you and people believing what you stand for. And what I do stand for is you should have a voice. No one should be shut up regardless of what it is. Everybody should have a voice regardless what that stance is. So that's why I'm representing Consensus Ontario, because what we're planning to do with this party is remove parties. So right now, there's about maybe 180 people in this room. If you guys come together collectively and something like, for example, affordable housing, right? Let's use that as an example. All these 80 individuals right here are able to come up with a conclusion that's going to benefit, that probably will come up with an answer for this affordable housing crisis. There's 6 of us here, right? What do we know? What do we know? The only reason why it seems like we know anything is because we're backed up with a party. But realistically, you got 80 against 6. You guys will come up with an answer by today. We'll be sitting here playing with garbage, playing with our own egos. So that's what I'm trying to say. Consensus Ontario is a party that's designed to eliminate parties and give back the power to the people, which was the original intention of politics. Our job as party leaders is only to do exactly what you guys want. You guys decide what you want, and we're supposed to supply the answer, not the other way around. We don't tell you what we want because it's 6 against 80. What do we know, right? Ain't nobody different between you and I. So Consensus Ontario, we're trying to put back the power into the people's hands, and all we're here to do is say, yo, what do you guys want? What do you guys need? We're gonna do it.
Thank you, Malachi. And appreciate everyone, and we kind of gave you as much time as you seem to have needed for that first question. But again, Christy's going to grill us and keep us to 90 seconds. It was also a nice segue into the first question, just because you mentioned affordable or attainable housing. And over the past several months, the Chamber has been working with a number of local organizations trying to illuminate the challenge that affordable housing is having on our community. And you can think about affordable housing from a social justice perspective, but there's the more practical need of people with good paying jobs, and not being able to either afford rent or to purchase a home. And I know there's been some mitigation in the pricing of recent, but in 2016, the average house price in St. Thomas was $280,000. In 2021, it was $700,000. You can appreciate that the speed of salary growth at that time has not doubled / nearly tripled. I wish it would, personally. I mean, not like personally and like for myself. That joke didn't work at all. But in any case, we've also had a chance to chat with you a little bit about this subject, or the majority of you surrounding that, and I've shared with you a document about some of the information. But having that opportunity to originally chat, and then, maybe going back and exploring what your party or what you would do, how do we actually, what movement, what action, what can we actually do, or what is your party's plan or your own plan to actually tackle affordable housing? And again, you can take that from the tactic of social housing, but again, we're here to support businesses and business growth and the jobs in here in our community. Also, how do we tackle that from people simply needing a place to live when they're hardworking folks who in almost any other time of our country's existence would have that opportunity to not fall backwards on that. Andy is up first for question 1, so I'm going to borrow Dave's microphone. Andy, did you catch all that?
Yeah, I did. Thanks, Paul. So the challenge with affordable housing has just been exploding, and I'll use our example in West Lorne where I work. So a couple of years ago, we started seeing people who were homeless coming to our center looking for help. People who'd been living in houses for years were getting rent-evicted and having no place to live, and they were looking for help. So this is a big problem. A couple of things that we have promised in our election platform is the construction of 100,000 new affordable housing units across Ontario. We are also committed to a supportive housing for a lot of people. As we know in Elgin and St. Thomas, a lot of people also need mental health and addiction support. So 60,000 of those units would provide the wraparound support for those people as well. Going door to door, ran into a lot of families where people can't afford to move out. And I think there was an article today that talked about it. It would take 22 years to save up a down payment for a house these days. So one of the things we're going to offer for first-time home buyers is a 10% down payment, interest-free, that you would only have to pay back when you sold your house. We're also going to be working on the current restrictions in terms of zoning that will allow developers to build more multifamily units that are needed instead of just single-family homes. Because we identified in a report we commissioned last fall.
Andy, sorry, I'm not sure which I'm talking to the microphone, but your 90 seconds is up. We'll give you a chance, 30 seconds for rebuttal at the end. And we're not trying to rush folks, but there is a lot of content that we do want covered and make sure everyone has a voice for that question. Does anybody remember who was after Andy? Heather.
That'd be me.
All righty.
All right. So Ontario is the best place in the world to call home, yet so many people can't afford to live in the neighborhoods they grew up in or the ones they love, enjoy, and work near. And one of the biggest reasons why housing costs are so high is because demand is so much higher than the supply. To meet demand, the Ontario Liberal Party will get at least 1.5 million new homes built in Ontario over the next 10 years. And we will build 138,000 deeply affordable homes, including 78,000 new social and community homes, 38,000 homes in supportive housing, and 22,000 new homes for Indigenous people. And we will create 150,000 new jobs through building these homes. We will also tax homes that are currently sitting empty, especially for non-Canadian owners, and ban new non-resident ownership, and introduce a use it or lose it tax on developers that are sitting on land that is ready for development. That's not really a huge issue right here in Elgin-Middlesex-London, but it is out there. We have to make sure that we have land everywhere for everyone to be able to grow their communities. We want to ensure that condo flippers are paying the appropriate amount of fees as well. The Ontario Liberals, we will also fund new emergency shelter beds and improve the existing shelters and relaunch the homelessness census. And we will promote a housing first approach to delivering support for people experiencing homelessness.
Thank you, Heather. Very, very close. We're going to, again, trying to keep you to the 90 seconds. And I believe it was Rob, so we're going down orderly right now. Rob.
Thanks, Paul. We have a daughter who would like to buy a house, and she's just moved into London and is paying astronomical rent, so we feel it right in our own home. I remember when I bought my first house, interest rates were 19%. A few in the room will remember when that happened. So this is not new. The issue we have in this province is we've got a lot of people that want to buy homes, and there are just not enough homes to buy. It's a supply issue. So we have to get this corrected. We have to base this whole solution on a market-based economy. We have to speed up how we get shovels in the ground. It takes too long for developers to get approvals to sell the lots or build homes on those lots. We talked about this last night with the home builders. It's a speed issue to me. Speed, speed, speed. It takes too long. And when you take a look at St. Thomas here, I talked to one builder last night. He's got 700 homes they can build, but they can't. And the other issue is labor. We come back to, we get approvals, but we need more skilled labor. We have got more jobs available in this riding, in this province, than there are people to fill them. So how do we get that done? We get them educated. We get more skills. Labor, our contractors need construction workers, need electricians, need carpenters, and we're in very, very short supply. So speed, working closely with municipalities, bringing them to the table, I think that has worked, and I think in the last 4 years there's been success in speeding up along, but the market is bigger, the demand is bigger, we need supply. Get supply, and I would politely suggest, as interest rates seem to be inching up because of a crazy monetary policy, you're going to see house prices come down a little bit, not enough. But get people with good paying jobs, and guess what? They'll be able to afford more homes.
All righty, we're perfect. We're going right over to Bridget.
Hi, the first priority right now is we have several contractors on strike. We've got crane operators on strike, we've got pipe layers on strike, and soon HVAC will be on strike. We need to get these people back to work. Like everyone else, we all need to get back to work. By providing people with a better income, we can provide them with better options in housing. We can move those that are in single-family homes that want to move up to a home of greater value. They'll be able to do so when they have the income provided to do so. We also can add a small tax to those people that are buying a home that is not for their own personal residence. We've seen this done in US states, and it's worked out quite well. We can also limit our foreign investments into our province. Let them go buy in Alberta. They don't need to buy in Ontario. We can also rezone and cut the red tape out for our developers. Allow them to have rebates or positive, some sort of positive economic benefit to them to redevelop their properties that they leave sit there that are not in good shape, not in good repair. and let them rebuild and put in housing with commercial properties as well. There's so much that we can do, and I'm sorry I saw the light.
There you go. Yeah, again, if you want to know what I'm looking at, again, we've upped our tech game. We got a cell phone connected in. We're on Rogers in like 24 hours. Alrighty, Matt Miller, we know you're excited to be here. So,
Well, asking a farmer to solve the affordable housing crisis in 90 seconds is a pretty big ask, but what we're going to do, we want to look at the systemic issues that are causing houses to be so expensive and why they're not getting built in time. So we want to make things more affordable by cutting HST. That'll make everything more affordable all across the board for everyone. We want to lower electricity rates by getting rid of the boondoggle of the wind turbine program. And we need to look at education. We need to encourage more people to get into the skilled trades. We don't need to send everyone to university. That's not for everyone. So we should be encouraging students to get into skilled trades. And we need to look at how apprentices are trained. Right now there's a limit on how many each journeyman can train. So we could look at raising that so we can get more apprentices trained, so we can get more people on the job working. And we need to look at ways to cut out layers of bureaucracy, get rid of the red tape, get the approval processes going faster so we can get those houses up and get people moved in and lower the prices.
thank you, Matt. Malachi, you're up next.
Now, you guys want me to be honest, right?
Do your thing, man.
You sure?
Do it.
Okay. You sure? You know what? The truth is that the only way the housing market is going to drop to become affordable is eliminate greedy government and greedy builders. That's it. You know, a couple years ago, builders were marking up their supplies by 10 to 12%. Right now, it's over 32. So yes, you know, educate individuals, find better ways to get skilled trades, but at the end of the day, it's not going to matter when the prices are being jacked up way above anybody that's attainable, any human being that could attain it, opposed to individuals that already had, maybe their grandmother or grandfather died and left them $1 billion. That's the only way. At the end of the day, eliminate greedy builders, put a cap on them. They cannot, you know, raise the prices. And at the government, they have to start looking at eliminating segregation in terms of making a clear line between the rich and the poor and having a middle ground in terms of affordability.
Thank you, Malachi. Dave.
I'm not on the Freedom Party executive, but I have been attending executive meetings for several years, and I don't recall this issue ever having been discussed, so I went to the executive and I asked them, you know, what's our position? So I'm going to read to you the response that I got from Robert Metz. He's our president. And Bob says Freedom Party does not have a policy on affordable housing since this is not a function of government, nor should it ever be. The real issue is growing poverty, and that is a 100% state-created issue. It's not a government's job to make anything affordable for anyone, nor is it capable of doing so. What government needs to do is to stop making everything unaffordable. Affordable housing is an euphemism for unaffordable housing, a circumstance entirely created by governments. Government should get out of the housing industry entirely and allow a free market to take root. In addition to factors mentioned, here are but a few others that have been making housing unaffordable, all thanks to government policies: rent controls, uncontrolled immigration, deficit financing, mandated lockdowns creating unemployment and dependency, outrageous zoning restrictions, banning of granny flats, irrational regulations on home renovations, destroying the property rights of landlords, ever-increasing property taxes, inflation, unaffordable and environmentally destructive green energy schemes, minimum wage laws, cost of electricity, travel restrictions, government debt, mass transit rip-offs, fuel prices, etc. An illusion of affordability promised by politicians is created by forcing Peter to pay for Paul, taxpayers' subsidies, or forcing a landlord to absorb the cost, etc.
That was probably a little bit more than 90 seconds. That's all.
Want to hear the rest? It's only another paragraph.
Alrighty. Well, you want to what? We're not done this, and again, I know in terms of the format and the debate piece of it, but you know, some wild different interpretations about possible solutions to the lack of, again, affordable or attainable housing in our communities, going all the way from obviously the freedom/libertarian perspective to more government intervention. And I just wanted to give everyone else like another 30 seconds to actually say their piece about that. Was there something that you did? I'm going to go back in the order that we did the questions. I'm going to give Andy the first crack. Andy, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, we in the NDP believe that housing, safe, affordable housing, is a basic human right, and that everyone deserves access to safe, affordable housing. We are committed to getting rid of rent evictions, bringing back rent control so that people can know that they can stay in their rental unit. And we're also planning on subsidizing 300,000 people who are struggling right now with paying their rent.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you for keeping to the timeline. Heather, did you have anything?
We'll use this one. That's okay. We've got lots of microphones we can share. So what other items that we would do as a Liberal government is work with our local municipalities, the folks that know on the ground what they need, and empower them to accelerate housing projects and make building homes a priority in growth planning legislation. And we want to work with the municipalities to expand the zoning options that are available when it comes to different housing types. And we want to see more brownfields that are underutilized redeveloped.
You guys are keeping it to the 30 seconds. Mr. Flack?
Let me begin by saying government should not be in the housing business. I'm hearing that, and I don't agree with it. Our job as a government, any government, is to create an environment for people, for builders, for developers to succeed. They've been doing it for centuries and doing quite well. We just have to speed up the process of getting houses built. When you fill the demand, you'll lower the prices, you'll make it more affordable.
If you haven't had to deal with the Landlord and Tenant Act, I can tell you that's quite the process. And as a landlord that's had to go through that, I would like to see landlords have an easier process and the tenant that caused the problem pay for the problem. If there is a tenant out there that's causing an issue to a landlord, like damaging property, they need to pay for that. It's not, I'm sorry, you're low income. You are responsible for your actions, as the government is.
Thank you, Bridget. Matt?
I think I got everything out the first time, but yeah, we just need to stop asking government to put Band-Aid solutions on everything for problems that they probably caused in the first place. We just need to look at the systemic causes of why we can't afford houses, why we can't build them in time, and work on those.
Malachi?
Building more houses is not gonna give individuals making $20,000 a year $100,000 to afford those houses, right? So yeah, the prices are gonna go down, but what we need to do is refund and concentrate on small business owners and try to help these small business owners get to a point financially that they can afford these houses that will probably never go down.
Thank you, Malachi. Dave, you can finish off that last paragraph if you want.
No, to reiterate, the position of the Freedom Party is that the solution to a lot of this is just for government to get out of the way, let people live their lives, and let businesses do their businesses.
All right, you guys were really leaning into the succinctness of your responses. I appreciate that, and clearly some different points of view about what the solution is to get there. I can't believe I'm excited about this question because it's going to be about debt and deficits, but I really am. Alan Weatherall, I believe, is in the room, had a few questions surrounding this, and I paraphrased them. The first all candidates debate I actually hosted, I was in high school in the 90s, and when you think about that back in the time, eliminating debt and deficits was a big deal. Mike Harris and the PCs, Paul Martin and the Liberal Party of Canada. That was a really distinct and memorable, for good or for not, part of my childhood. Today, it seems, unfortunately, that governments give this issue less and less importance. And Ontario, at the same time, has one of the largest sub-sovereign debts in the world, which costs us nearly $1 billion a month to service. So education is about $10 billion. So we're spending more on servicing our debt than we are in actually delivering programs. Do any of your parties have a plan in terms of addressing the structural deficit? How urgent is it to your party, and what's the overall plan? We're down to Heather Jackson to start the first time again. I am going to start cutting you off if we go over the 90 a little bit more diligently. I want to hear what you say, but Heather.
Hello. That one's not working. All right, we'll forget about that one. So we do have a plan to balance the budget and to reduce the deficit by 2026. And by doing that, is staying within our means and relying on the expanded growth in the province to fund new projects. We also want to see, we're looking at removing some HST from certain available products, and to help pay for that, we're going to implement a 1% surtax on the highly profitable companies that are operating in Ontario who earn more than $1 billion a year. And we'll also introduce a new tax bracket for the 0.2% of Ontarians whose taxable income is over $500,000 per year, which would be taxed at a rate of 15.16%, which is up just 2% from their current rate. But we need those that are doing well in our province to step up and to help those that are really struggling within our communities.
Thank you, Heather. Rob.
If you read Minister Bethlenfalvy's budget a few weeks ago, you'll see that our budget is, the deficit is projected to be $19 billion this year, up a little more than we had hoped, but still a lot less than we projected last fall. The debt is overwhelming, and you're right, Paul, we're servicing too much of it. Too much money is going to pay interest rather than put into services that could be used by people in this province. How are we going to get out of the deficit? Build the economy. When people are employed, they pay taxes. When businesses succeed and investment comes into this province, they pay taxes. That's how you're going to limit the deficit. And I would say that there's a difference between spending and investing. I hear a lot of spending going to take place, but investing in infrastructure, hospitals, roads, and schools is what this province needs. And with that service, we'll have people get affordable jobs and we'll eliminate the debt.
Bridget.
The first thing we're going to do is stop corporate welfare. We don't need to give $260 million to Honda, who has a $660 million profit. We don't need to do that. We could have put that $260 million into housing. We also are going to remove duplicate jobs within our government, make us more efficient, make us work faster, work harder, and work for your job. Just because you work for the federal or provincial governments doesn't mean that it is a guaranteed job. We're also going to rehire all those that have been displaced over the last 2 years. If you were a nurse, doctor, truck driver, or a school teacher who has been told that you are no longer essential or necessary in society, we will rehire you, and that will generate more taxes so that we don't have deficits.
Matt.
Yeah, so same with us. First thing on the agenda is to rehire anyone that lost their jobs due to mandates. And there are a few other points in our new blueprint that address cutting down the deficit. We want to scrap the subsidy of political parties that our government had promised to get rid of but ended up increasing instead. Right now we're paying out about $10 million a year to political parties. We want to scrap that. They should be getting their funds from people that agree with them and want to support them, not from unwilling taxpayers. And we want to impose a provincial tax on any corporate media that's receiving federal bailout money. And that's the only tax you'll ever hear me advocating for. And we want to lower energy prices by scrapping the wind turbine program. A 2018 study has shown that it would cost about 3 times as much to keep them running for 1 year as it would to buy out all the contracts and take them down. We're paying about $1 billion a year just to offload the excess energy produced by those turbines because they tend to produce the most at off-peak times when we don't need the energy and we have to offload it. And we're going to look for ways to cut out bureaucracy and government waste wherever we can, and we know there's plenty of that around.
Thank you, Matt. Are we still cooking here with my microphone? All right. Malachi.
90% of all deficits are caused by misspending. That's the plain truth. It's caused by misspending. First of all, an overpayment. What I mean by that is that we should lower the salaries of all government officials. Every single government officials, they do not need to make that kind of money for what they're doing. The money should be invested back into the small businesses instead of destroy the small businesses, because without the small businesses, the economy, no matter what kind of plan you put into place, will not survive.
Thank you, Malachi. We are going, oh no, Dave, you're before Andy. Dave, debt and deficits.
Yeah, not sure if I'm allowed to agree with what another candidate just said, but yeah, it's a serious problem. When I say this, the Freedom Party, I don't believe, has a specific policy on how to go about reducing the debt. It's a pretty complex issue. I do have a personal thought on it. My personal thought is maybe we should just stop paying the interest. Because what are the banks going to do? Foreclose? And if they foreclose and we declare bankruptcy, they're out all of the principal, right? So just stop paying the interest until the debt is paid off. What that's going to do is it's going to prevent the province from being able to borrow any more money. Boo-hoo. The province would have to learn to live within its means, just like I do and just like all you folks do. So let's just stop paying the interest.
All righty, we're bringing Andy in on the remote here. Andy, it's your turn.
Yeah, so what the NDP is suggesting is that we actually create a fairer system. I'm sure most people in the room there feel that they pay their fair share of taxes. And what we're suggesting is that people who have benefited, the rich people and the large corporations that are declaring record profits, pay their fair share. And so we are proposing modest 1% and 2% increases for the highest income earners, with freezes on people making less than $220,000 a year. And that large corporations, Canadian billionaires made $80 billion in excess profits in the first year of COVID. We need them to pay their fair share. So we released our fully costed platform on the weekend, and that includes some of those challenges. I guess the other story that I think we need to talk about with respect to deficits is the environmental deficit that we're leaving for our kids. We talk about the fiscal deficit, but we don't really talk about the planet that we're leaving behind for them. And I think that we need to have a broader conversation about what deficit means and what the importance of government spending is to create the future that our kids and grandkids need.
Thank you, Andy, and again, thanks for keeping so punchy to the time. We've again been offering an opportunity for about 30 seconds. Heather, it's back to you.
Yeah, so I just have one thing I want to say, that the debt and the deficit is not a complex issue. It is economics 101. Like, it's don't spend more than you have coming in. We all budget for ourselves at our homes. We know what we have coming in, and it's staying within those means and offering programs and services that are needed to our community, and keeping in mind that there is one taxpayer. Whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal taxes, it's all coming out of our pockets, the taxpayers. It is not that complex.
Thank you, Heather. Rob.
Heather, I totally agree with you. I'd like you to take that message up to Mr. Trudeau. But I would say politely that leading up to 2018, we lost 300,000 jobs. And we've created 550, not we, the government, the economy, you did. And guess what? Our deficit is lower than it was expected to be because we have a healthier economy. People are working, people are paying taxes, and yes, everyone should pay their fair share.
I think I speak when for fiscal responsibility. I am one of the few people in this room that didn't take a loan out or rely on the rest of you to put a storefront here in St. Thomas. For those that didn't get to see me or come and speak to me in St. Thomas, that's because I made a fiscal decision to be responsible and not to do that. We stand on fiscal responsibility.
Alrighty. Matt.
Again, I don't really have anything else to add. We just need to cut down waste and stop spending so much. And we can look at the record of who's been running this province in the past and see how much they've been spending versus what they're saying.
Malachi.
I think everything comes down to the reason why there's overspending is because it's misspending by the government, not by the people, by the government. So the key thing right now is give back the power to the people. I'm sure the people are not going to overspend their own money. I'm sure they're not going to put themselves in a deficit, but the government doesn't care because they get all this money from the people, and they say, hey, let's go to Disneyland. You get a car, you get a house, you get a boat. Make the people pay for it. Consensus Ontario is giving back the people that own this money the power with their own money.
Thank you, Malachi. Dave.
The bottom line is you can't spend your way out of debt. And when I look at what some of the more forthcoming parties are posting in their platforms about the many tens of billions of dollars of increased spending that they're planning to implement over the next 4 years, I really wonder how they think they're going to balance the budget. It seems to me like killing the mother of all hangovers by pounding back another Mickey.
Andy, it's your go.
Yeah, and I guess, as I said earlier, we've released our fully costed budget, and I would encourage people to go and look at that. We are also committed to the same amount of infrastructure funding that the current government is committed to. We're just going to change the priorities. We think money should better be spent on renovating hospitals and schools that are in bad need of repairs than spending on highways that people don't really need or want.
Thank you, Andy. All right. We're going to move on. I've got one more question here, and then there's a few people on the floor that I'm going to call on, but I wanted to get to this one. Rob, you're going to get first crack at this. And it's interesting. Obviously, the diversity of voices here, different approaches to everything, different frustrations, no doubt. And fortunately or not, I think this question is going to illuminate parts of those. So it's about the pandemic, which has challenged families and, of course, businesses on multiple levels. And the responses that we've had, sometimes in terms of broken relationships, frustrated businesses, unfair potential treatment between big box stores and mom and pop shops in downtown. And I want to be clear just for everyone here that the Chamber itself, since the start of the pandemic, has been a key player in terms of our community's response, whether that was in helping the early production of PPE locally. But ultimately, we advocated for predictability and specific benchmarks in terms of any additional business closures, and we suggested, and we sent this up the chain to the Premier, that everything should be based on the use of our ICU and deaths. So if people weren't dying and we had access to the ICU, that restrictions should otherwise be looked at differently. So that's you're going to come to this question in your own various ways from your own various perspectives. But as we look, we're probably not beyond the pandemic. It's probably something that we're going to be considering in 6 or 7 months now. If the business community is going to face closures again, how are we going to understand? How are we going to navigate that? What is your plan, either personally, that you'll advocate to your party, or your party's platform as well, about what we can do to mitigate restrictions on businesses in terms of their operations through times of partial chaos?
Thanks, Paul. I don't think anyone would doubt the statement when I say this has been unprecedented times. It's been tough. There was no blueprint. There was no roadmap for the pandemic. Nobody really saw it coming. It was a global pandemic, and it's been hard as hell for everybody, from mental health to real health to long-term care. It's been tough. But I will say this. I think we've come through it fairly well. Were there mistakes made? A few, sure. But who had the perfect answer? Everyone seems to have perfect answers looking in the rear-view mirror. We want to look forward. The plan is to stay open, Paul. Absolutely. We have to stay open. But I will also make this abundantly clear. We had a capacity problem in our hospitals. It didn't just happen in 2018. It happened for the last 30 years. We were not ready for the pandemic, and we are going to be ready going forward. One quick example, we're now no longer reliant on PPEs from foreign countries. We're going to build a plant right here in London and hire Londoners and St. Thomas folks, Elgin-Middlesex-London people to fill those jobs. So our plan is to stay open. We have to invest, again, in infrastructure and make sure that we are not caught short again.
Thank you, Rob. Bridget.
During the pandemic, we fired 97 nurses. We continue to fire nurses who do not comply. This is unacceptable. If your loved one is having a heart attack, do you care if that nurse has a QRC code or not? You do not. You want them to get help. We are hiring back every one of those nurses, every doctor, every person that spoke out. Science is only as good as two sides of the coin. You don't get to choose one side and just go with that. We also aren't going to have public health ministers say, I'm only reading what they gave me instead of providing you with the information that I have. We will never close your business, ever. The only thing that should have been closed were the Walmarts and Costco's because they could not segregate you and keep you away from each other and social distance you. Your small business could have done that much better. The other thing we're going to do is support our supply chain. If we had a pandemic, we had millions of truck drivers out there that had no PPEs, that had nothing, that had to use parks and underneath their trailers to use as bathrooms. We will not treat those people as dogs. They are essential workers. We're also not going to censor you. If you have something to say, say it. Censorship does not play a role.
Thank you, Bridget. You're right on time with the light over there, too. Matt, your turn.
So as we heard, there are no perfect answers, especially from government. That's why everything should be left up to personal choice. Back in 2021, Roman Baber had introduced a bill to reduce MPP pay to CERB levels after people had been forced out of work. And what happened? Instead, the House leader moved that only Roman's pay would be reduced to those levels, and it passed by unanimous vote, but later was overturned. So that's the kind of thing we were dealing with in government. They put people out of work, shut down businesses. Everyone was suffering, but the politicians themselves thought it was a joke. It's so sad. New Blue Party would get rid of all restrictions. We'd rehire anyone that was fired. We'd pass legislation so there could be no more lockdowns, no more telling people that they're not essential, they can't work, you can't run your business, you can only run at half capacity, so you can't make any money. All that would be gone. So how we're going to avoid closures, restrictions, we're just going to get rid of them and make sure they can't come back.
Malachi.
You have to bring back true democracy. True democracy in terms of the people decide. If the people had a choice on deciding if there was going to be a lockdown or not, we would not be in a lockdown right now. The problem is that you give a few individuals in office the power to determine what the rest of the country needs, wants, while they're doing whatever they want to do. You know, there was videos with Rob Ford getting a haircut, but he shut down every single barbershop on the planet, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that give back the individuals, the people back the power, let them decide, and the government, us, all we're designed to do is do what you guys want us to do, what you guys choose for your own lives.
Thank you, Malachi. Dave.
The Freedom Party platform this time around is pretty much entirely devoted to this issue. We have 4 pillars in the platform, or planks if you like. Truth, rights, justice, and freedom. It's all online. Please feel free to look it up, but it's a very comprehensive plan about how to address all the wrongs that have happened and make as best restitution as we can to the people that were harmed by it.
Alrighty, super succinct, Dave. I'm going to grab that microphone from you. Alrighty, Andy, it's your turn.
Yes, so we were unfortunate at our health centers that one of the first people that died in Elgin was one of our clients, and our personal support workers did amazing work, as did all the rest of our healthcare workers. And I think what we need to do going forward is make sure that we support our healthcare workers and our healthcare system so that we're ready for the next pandemic. We had an inquiry into SARS, and we threw out all the lessons that we learned from SARS and started from scratch. So we need to do a public inquiry into COVID to figure out what we can do better next time. We need to protect small businesses going forward. They paid an unfair burden in the pandemic. They were unfairly targeted and did not get the support they needed. So we will provide support to small businesses if and when we have a future pandemic. We also need to look after people who have long COVID. There was a report yesterday by the Bank of England that estimated that there's a 1% to 2% drop in the total labor supply due to the impact of long COVID and people with long-term symptoms. So we need to make sure that those people get taken care of as well.
Thank you, Andy. Heather.
Thank you. So we're talking about mitigating restrictions on businesses, and we're not looking at shutting down any businesses in the future. I think we're at the point in the pandemic where we are learning how to live with this and based on the science that is out there. We have a great plan for small businesses and how we can support that, knowing that small businesses are the heart of our economy right here in Elgin-Middlesex-London. And we will eliminate corporate taxes for 2 years for small businesses that have been deeply hurt by the pandemic, and loan an additional $300 million to tens of thousands of small businesses that need support to get back on their feet. We want to eliminate incorporation fees for new business startups. My husband started 2 new businesses last year, during everything that was going on, and we got married in September. So it was a very hectic household, but it was a lot of confusion around what was going on with registering businesses. Between the time from starting the first one to the second one, there had been a complete change on the government website on the information and what he needed to do. And that's not helpful to anyone. It needs to be super clear, and it needs to be a heck of a lot easier for people to be able to start their own businesses and to grow our economy. We need to invest in e-commerce, cybersecurity, and innovation for all of our businesses out there as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. I'm going to go back to Rob. I'm not sure if there's anything you wanted to add on this specific topic.
The only thing, Paul, I would add is I want to take this opportunity to thank all the frontline workers, whatever they were, wherever they were, whether it was doctors, nurses, personal support workers. They are the unsung heroes and continue to be so, so thank you to them.
Yes! Bridget.
I'd also like to thank my trucker friends who kept the supply chain going relentlessly over the last 2 years. And I promise you, you will not be treated like you have been in the past, because we have only gotten 12 parking spots while we have taken so much more away from us. You will not have anything shut down to you, and you will not be segregated or discriminated against. Not while we're watching out for you. That's for sure.
Matt.
Individuals and businesses need to be allowed to make their own decisions. They all have their own risk profiles, their own risk tolerance. They can decide what's the right move for them. We don't need the government taking top-down approaches and dictating to everyone what they can or can't do. So we need to leave everything up to the individuals to decide.
Malachi.
The last thing I want to add is every single individual that did get discriminated because of their choice also at the same time, the individuals that got fired, not only should they receive their job back, they should receive back pay and interest for all those months that was removed from them. And on top of that now, add a separate funding for anybody that was affected within the household, whether it be if they got divorced because of that, whether it be mental illness because of the lockdown, whether it be they couldn't afford to even feed their family. They need to be compensated for stuff like that.
Alrighty. Dave?
Again, our 2022 platform addresses a lot of these issues and proposes a lot of the solutions that I've heard here.
Andy?
Yeah, one of the things that we clearly identified over the past 2 years is the need for paid sick days for people to give them the opportunity to stay home when they're sick. And we know that small business needs help with that, and that small business cannot afford to give their workers the paid sick time that they need. So that when people have the choice between coming to work or not getting paid, we know that that was a big challenge for small business and for the workers they have. We also know that small businesses needed access to PPE and personal protective equipment, and we will make that easier for them.
Thank you, Andy. Heather?
So an Ontario Liberal government will restore in funding for arts, music, cultural, and sports, and reintroduce a Indigenous culture fund. And we also want to strengthen our supply chains and reshore key industries. We know that the pandemic underscored the consequences of reduced manufacturing capacity here, right here at home. And we want to strengthen that partnership with our partners and strategic public procurement to bring more production back to our province.
Alrighty, tight. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to invite Nico from the Central Community Health Center. Nico, she had a question that I'm going to let her ask herself.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks for the opportunity to ask this question. For those who don't know, the Central Community Health Center is a charitable organization based in St. Thomas, but it provides service to people experiencing barriers to health care throughout this area, St. Thomas, Southwold Township, Central and East Elgin. Charities like CCHC play an essential role in our society, and we partner with many of the people represented here, different agencies, municipal leaders, business leaders, and provincial government agencies. We're a member of the Chamber, and the charitable nonprofit sector contributes an average of 8.1% to the total GDP. So we play an important role in our society, and we know that healthy people lead to healthy communities. We serve 4,000 clients. These are among the most vulnerable and marginalized people here in our communities. Our core part, our base budget has not been increased in over 10 years, and yet our rent has gone up over 18% 2 years ago, and of course the cost of electronic medical records and various other things like electricity have all increased dramatically. This community would be in serious trouble if we were to cut our programs and services to the people we serve. Obviously, this is not what any of us would like to see. So we have two questions for people running for office here. The first is, will your party commit to a base funding increase immediately in 2022 for community-governed primary health care teams? And the second is, what is your party's plan to ensure adequate resources and funding for organizations working to achieve health equity for everyone in Ontario? Thank you.
Thank you, Aniko, for that question. And a few of you in the last one actually touched on investments in healthcare for that. So obviously there's a very specific question about primary care for those facing barriers in our community, but ultimately it's a question of investments overall. We're going to start with Bridget on this one.
Actually, that's on our party platform. Supporting organizations like you is very key to the community. Adding more alternative healthcare options is very important in this community. A lot of people don't even have physicians. In this community, in my home community, we're very close together, so we're not that spread out. Having doctors by Zoom calls is a problem. I don't know about you, but if you ever looked on your computer, it's really hard to see that red rash that may not look quite red to that doctor. We need more doctors. We're going to fast track any license that they have in whatever country they're going to come from, and they're going to immigrate here. These are great immigrants to our country, so we're going to help them and fast track them. We're going to provide more resources for you. This is all in our platform. Healthcare is a #1 priority. After the last 2 years, our mental health has decreased. We need to fix that. We have waiting times that have gone in the last 4 years from 9 months to 25 months. We need to add, and I know people are going to be but we need to add some private medical resources to help relieve that. We have no other option.
Thank you, Bridget. Matt.
I can't commit to a funding increase because I don't have all the details of the situation. I won't make a promise that I can't keep, but we definitely do need to make sure that we are compensating everyone fairly. We need to make sure patients are getting the care they need, and we'll definitely work on lowering costs, like as you mentioned, electricity rates. We have a plan for that. We're going to lower taxes for everyone, and we should be looking into early treatments rather than waiting until people get too sick to do anything about and then go in and get a Band-Aid solution. We should focus more on early treatments.
Thanks, Matt. Malachi.
Sorry, where? Oh, there you are. Okay, this is exactly what I was saying in the beginning. There's no possible way any of us would know what's happening in your section of the world and the knowledge that you have. What we would do is, yes, if everything that you're saying is what you need, we're going to do everything in our power. No, we will do it. We will do it. We're going to bring you in, and you're going to educate us on what you need. You're going to educate us on what you need, and what we're going to do is try to help you save lives. Because the truth is that if without you, what do we know? What do we know? We're going to say yes, we're going to say no, we're going to say whatever, but you come in, you tell us exactly what your section needs, and we have, if you're a human, how can you say no to what you just asked?
Thank you so much. Dave.
Again, I don't think the Freedom Party has a specific position on this, at least not in this election, but a few thoughts are that the whole system needs reform. We have talked previously about, remember OHIP, the Ontario Health Insurance Plan? That's what it was meant to be, an insurance plan. It's become welfare. We have levels of management in our healthcare system like local health integration networks, and as far as I can tell, the main purpose of them is to issue periodic press releases to explain why they haven't accomplished anything. There's just a lot that needs to be looked at. A freedom government would look at these things, go back to a lot of the basics back in the days when the healthcare system worked really well. When I was in university, I worked a few summers as a summer student at London Psychiatric Hospital. I think it had over 500 beds for patients, and the hospital here in St. Thomas had a lot more than that. Most of those have all been closed, and people have sent back out into the community where they were supposedly going to get good care, so now they're living in cardboard boxes in parks, and that's community care. We used to have drug treatment programs on the wards and a monitoring clinic where we helped people get off drugs rather than saying, buy your own illicit drugs and come here and we will inject you with them safely. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed in this system.
Thank you, Dave. Andy.
Thanks for the question, Aniko. I didn't quite get the last part of it, but I can unequivocally say that the NDP will give community health centers and other primary care the long-deserved increases that they need for the base funding. We are committed to giving CHCs a 7% increase in base funding because they haven't had funding increases for 12 years. I'm not sure how many other businesses can run the way that they have. We're also committed to an 11% increase for your staffing needs. Again, it's frustrating when we call people healthcare heroes and then we don't give them any money to increase their salaries, as has happened over the past couple of years. So that needs to change. We're also committed to doing similar increases for our mental health and addictions colleagues who have been doing great work over the past 2 years, and giving them a 7% increase in their budget. So we know that primary care needs to be the foundation of healthcare. We know that primary care has been ignored for too many years, and as we work through the restructuring of the Ontario health teams, we're continuing to make sure that we ensure that primary care and community care and home care, which are the care systems that people need the most, are there when people need them. So we will work to improve access through nurse practitioner-led clinics. We will increase the number of community health centers across the province, and we will provide equitable care to the people who need it most.
Thank you, Andy. Heather.
So I want to start out by saying I feel a little bit offended by Malachi keep insinuating that none of us have any experience or knowledge of these issues, and I certainly do. I spent 15 years in municipal politics, and I sat on the board at the CCHC. I know what I'm talking about. I know what's going on at the community level, and I know what's happening here in our community. Our new Liberal team includes doctors, nurses, and hospital leadership, which is very important. I didn't want to be a part of a team that wasn't everyday citizens that are contributing to what we need to do. We have committed to building 15 new community health centers across the province, and while doing that, we will review all operating and capital budget requests that you have. We do want to increase them, but I think we need to look at those numbers very carefully, especially if we're going to commit to setting up new ones. We also want to ensure access for everyone to a family doctor or a nurse practitioner. When you make a call, that within 24 hours of that call, you are seeing a doctor or a nurse practitioner. We will repeal Bill 124 and ensure that mental health services are available for all of our healthcare professionals. They need this just as much as everyone else. They have been working flat out during this pandemic, and they really need the support. We're also going to create over 3,000 new hospital beds as well by investing in our current hospitals and building more.
Thank you, Heather. Rob.
Thanks, Anika. So I need to learn a little bit more about your base budgeting, but when I take a look at infrastructure and investment, again, we're looking at over $27 billion in infrastructure throughout Ontario's health system, and we need to hire more doctors, nurses, PSWs, 27,000. That is a commitment. And there is $3.8 billion targeted to support further projects. Again, I need to understand a little more specifically what you're talking about, so I don't want to make a promise I can't deliver on, but I'm happy to listen and learn. I would say something when knocking on the doors in this election, and I've listened to a lot of stakeholders in the health industry. One thing that amazes me, and I don't know if you know this, but home care is critical to our healthcare's future, and we need to do a better job. Why does a VON nurse make $11 an hour less than a hospital nurse? Why? It's not right. So I think there's a lot of corrections that need to take place. Long-term care. Another question. You live in St. Thomas your whole life. You get to the point where you have to go to long-term care. Why do you have to move out of the county or move to Goderich or wherever? Because there's not enough facilities. We are committed to building more long-term care facilities and supporting that infrastructure as part of our plan.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. We're back to the top. Bridget, anything to add with this discussion?
Just a little added. There was a research project I looked at while we were going through the pandemic of what a healthy individual is. In our community, we need somebody that has a purpose. That means a job. That means a purpose to get up out of bed every morning. They need family and friends. They need a social environment. They need a sense of community, that they belong in this community. And they need food. And over the last 2 years, we took every bit of that away from them. It's time to give it back so we can build healthy people in our communities.
Thank you, Bridget. Matt.
I don't have anything further to add on this specific question.
Malachi.
And Heather, everything you said is amazing. It's beautiful. It's one thing to say, it's one thing to do it. You should have done it a couple of years ago with the Liberal Party.
Well, We are, in the last 4 years, the Ford government
I'm
has
sorry,
been in
I
control,
wrote-
so let's remember that.
All righty, Dave.
Nothing further.
I need your microphone, Dave. Andy.
Yeah, I think primary care has been heroic during the past pandemic, but clearly they need our support, whether it's family physicians, nurse practitioners, and also the mental health and addictions partners. We've seen a huge increase in the need for additional mental health and addiction support, and that will be one of the priorities of the NDP going forward.
Thank you, Andy. Heather.
So another thing that we want to do is ensure that every Ontarian has access to prescription drug coverage, and private benefit plans cover all of the drugs that are available in our public formulary by creating a portable benefit package for individuals that they can take with them from job to job. I want to point out that our aging population has created tremendous strains for the health sector, but the previous Ontario Liberal government invested in the system's capacity and added 6,000 physicians and 28,000 nurses, including 11,000 RNs across Ontario. We have a plan and a track record of investing in healthcare while Conservatives push towards privatization.
All righty, well, perfect segue into the Conservative. Rob.
No one's ever talked about privatization here. We support healthcare. We put our money where our mouth is. The plan is written. Read the budget. There's been more spent by the Ford government in the last 4 years in healthcare than any other government in the province's history. Full stop.
Lovely, a lot of passion on that question. We're hitting at 5:30 here. I feel like we have time for one more question. I'm going to invite Dusty Underhill from the GM at the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority to ask the next question. We'll go through this, obviously, and then you'll have an opportunity to wow our business community with your closing remarks. But Dusty, welcome.
Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. So conservation authorities protect, restore, and manage impacts on Ontario water resources. So we design programs mainly to protect people from natural hazards. So in southwestern Ontario, today as we speak, Kenora, Ontario, there's a dam possibly about to break. It will inundate a town. Port Bruce, Ontario, seen severe flooding this year. So it's our main objective to design programs against this. But we haven't received any funding. In fact, we're woefully underfunded. Funding and technical support is needed for programs, our aging infrastructure, to update our floodplain mapping, and to develop asset management plans, which is now required by the Conservation Authorities Act. How do you intend on addressing these provincial shortfalls in funding and technical support? Thank you.
All right, you almost forgot. We've got Mr. Matt Miller. You're up.
Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I don't have a specific solution for this. But we're going to look at just making things more affordable all around, cutting government waste so we have more money to spend on things that are important like that, from lowering electricity rates, lowering taxes, cutting out bureaucracy. Those are just all the systemic things we can look at so we have the resources we need to deal with specific issues.
Thank you, Matt. Malachi.
The only way that's going to be fixed is bringing him into that meeting before we allocate the funding. That's it.
Okay. Not using up these 90 seconds. Dave.
No idea. We'd need more information before we could develop a policy on it.
Andy, I'm hoping you could hear some of that question was surrounding funding for conservation authorities, woefully inadequate as explained by our speaker, and just looking for your response.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. Again, if you were to look at our costed platform, you would see that we are going to restore all the funding that was cut to conservation authorities. We know that they cannot do the job that they're supposed to do with the reduced funding that they have been given over the past few years. So we know that needs to change. And we also know that they do important work that negatively impacts us. We've seen with the impacts of climate change, all of the flooding every spring on the creeks throughout Elgin. And if they actually had the resources that they need to do the work, then we might be able to address some of the challenges with the excess flooding on the floodplain. We know floodplain maps need to be redone, and we know that they need the resources to do that. We also know that they need resources to protect species at risk and to make sure that the environment is protected for our kids and our grandkids.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Dusty, for the question. I think it's really important. I sat on the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority for 15 years. I was chair for a number of those. And at that time, funding had been frozen at 1997 levels, which was atrocious to begin with. We were talking about this in 2016, 2017, 2018. These numbers have actually been cut back to even previous to what you've had before that, before the changes to the Act. And we need to bring those changes not back to that 97 level, but to current levels, current operating levels that make it easier for you to do your jobs, to be able to access increased, to update that floodplain mapping. We need that so we can build more houses. We need to know where the floodplains are. We need to know where our environmentally significant areas, so we have the proper setbacks when we need, we're trying to increase our housing stock. We have to ensure that we're taking care of the environment as well. We've also pledged, as an aside, to plant 800 million trees in this province, and it is completely doable. When I was chair of the conservation area, we had funding from OPG, and over 10 years, we planted 1 million trees in this watershed. And I know, Dusty, you were part of that, and that's just the beginning. So there's so many more things that we can do together for our environment, but the funding levels have got to go back up to a reasonable level to be able to do the work.
Thank you, Heather. Rob?
Thanks, Dusty. I've had the pleasure to meet with 2 of the conservation authorities in the last few weeks and have learned a lot. And happy to meet with you, hopefully, whenever it's convenient. Yes, there's aging infrastructure, but I'm going to say this. If we're going to fund this, where's the money going to come from? You know where it's going to come from? More jobs, a better economy. We've got to create revenue there. Number one. Number two, do municipalities also fund these conservation authorities? Absolutely. So let's get more shovels in the ground. Let's get them building more houses, generating income for these municipalities so they can fund an event like that. The economy, a good economy, solves all ills.
Thank you, Rob. Bridget?
The environment is a big problem for us, problem to solve. We're looking at gallons, hundreds of thousands of gallons being dumped daily into our waterways. We need to clean this up. This shouldn't be allowed. We're contaminating our own water, and water is a precious resource. As far as the infrastructure or the environmental issues you're facing, we're all on board. We're with you. The environment, we only get one. We can build another building, but we can't build another waterway. We can't build, another protected area. We've had the Ford government have the option to look into one of these projects, and he spent millions of dollars and not even got a shovel in the ground, and it will be years before he even does get a shovel in the ground. So it is a priority to us. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much. We have been going around offering 30 seconds. I'm going to kibosh that. Everyone all right with not 30 seconds on that question? Because we have an opportunity, 20 minutes left to get one more in. And I want to actually go back a little bit to the last question, because it was surrounding investments in healthcare, and full disclosure, like I'd never worked on the clinical side of healthcare, but I've worked on the fundraising side for a number of years. And the physical infrastructure is important, but ultimately it's having the staff in place to be able to deliver that care. We don't actually need more physical beds. We need the nursing and support staff and physicians to do that. And this is me editorializing, so it's not the Chamber's position, but there seems to be and have been an opportunity to actually make investments in healthcare that would have allowed the system to buttress itself, that would have prevented us from having to close down parts of the economy on the other side. Obviously, we start off this, we're a business-oriented organization. We talked about the debt and the deficit, the concerns that this money has to come from somewhere. But where do your parties see this investment? You know, we talked about mental health and addiction and you know, potentially the impact on downtown businesses, Malachi. How do we go about addressing some of these structural pieces? So it is about healthcare, and it's about healthcare as investing in it, preventive medicine, for people. It's about investing in healthcare so that we have the resources available to us so we don't have to shut down the economy again. It's investing in healthcare so we actually have the supports for people struggling with mental health and addiction, living in gullies and ravines throughout the community rather than having access to either shelter or the services that they need. I know that you might not be, you know, fully well versed in all of your party's positions on this, but whether you want to take it even from a personal thing, how do we tackle some of these basic fundamental expectations and that we deserve in a way that's responsible to our community? And Malachi, you're the only one that hasn't had a chance to go first, so this is you.
Let me ask you this question, Paul. If we brought you into that meeting, you said exactly what you said with your knowledge, because I know you for a while, and your expertise on what is needed within that healthcare system, what do you think will happen?
I'm going to say that there might be some tires spinning.
Yeah.
And I've been, like, full disclosure here, and for everyone, I'm not just a conversation with you. I've been involved in partial formation of the Ontario Health Team, or the Elgin Health Team here locally. I was a board member for the Central Community Health Centre as well, and I would have that. But it's the critical investment. So we're talking about, you know, in the particular case of staffing at a hospital through a pandemic. People were getting burnt out. So we probably should have been at least paying them more, potentially allowing them to come back to work if they were asymptomatic, if they were positive, to ensure we had the scope. I'm no doubt that a few of the people up here would say we shouldn't have let people go that refused the vaccines. But ultimately, we don't have enough of those people. We don't have enough of them if they get burnt out. We don't have enough of those people if they actually get diagnosed. So I can bring that information to it, but the execution of that has to be done with the support of our elected representatives. So ultimately, I think it would come back to you.
My job is to execute.
All righty. Dave.
Seems passing strange to me that the people that were heroes in the early part of the pandemic, before there were any vaccines, they were there for 8 or 9 months sort of thing. A lot of them probably got COVID and natural immunity, and once a vaccine became available, they became pariahs and they're out in the street. What's that all about? I mean, that's not very smart thinking or acting. So I mean, yeah, part of it is a staffing issue, but part of it is just plain mismanagement. There was a facility set up at the Agriplex in London. I think it was like 500 beds or something like that. And it was supposed to be a triage facility for people that were suspected of having COVID. Nobody ever went there. I mean, it sat there for months. They established it millions of dollars of setup and operation. Not a single person ever showed up there. They all went to the hospitals, and what did they do with them at the hospitals? They didn't say go to the Agriplex. They said, no, come on in here, we'll put you in a room that normally has 2 or 4 people in it, and we will block that room. And what blocked means is that that room where it would normally have 2 or 4 surgical patients in it was blocked from use because it had one person in it who may be positive for COVID. So there was a lot of things that were just done plain wrong, and throwing money at it isn't going to be the solution. It's going to be working smarter, not harder, and not just dumping a truckload of money on it and hoping that the money smothers the problem.
Thank you, Dave. Andy.
Okay, you may cut me off here. This is going to be hard for me to say in a minute and a half. So, working in healthcare over the past 2 years, these people deserve our respect and admiration. I have amazing personal support workers. I have amazing nurses, doctors. And my big concern right now is my staff are burnt out. I know staff in the hospitals are burnt out. They have not been treated with the respect and dignity that they deserve as individuals. On a positive note, we know that the NDP is going to bring mental health care into OHIP. We're going to bring dental care into OHIP. We're going to bring pharmacare into all. This has the opportunity to be the biggest change in our universal healthcare system in 50 years. We've learned through COVID that we need to create a better, more comprehensive healthcare system. And we're also going to declare an emergency with respect to the drug crisis that we are seeing, the overdose crisis, and bring the resources for mental health and addictions that people across Elgin need. We know that there's a mental health crisis that's coming as a result of the challenges that we all have had over the past 2 years. We need to find the resources, and we need to support our hard-working healthcare staff who've done amazing work.
Awesome, Andy. You kept it almost close to 30 or to 90 seconds. Heather.
Okay, so healthcare is a really, as we all know, we all use it, we all access healthcare in some way or form. And our plan is to hire 100,000 healthcare workers, prioritizing full-time roles. We want to increase the PSW pay rate and repeal Bill 124 that caps wages. We want to bring in more internationally trained health professionals, get them up to speed a lot quicker, and cover tuition costs for medical and nursing students working in a rural or remote community. We need to train 3,000 new mental health and addictions professionals and reduce the wait times for mental health care, and provide free mental health first aid and guided online supports. We need to have mental health professionals in emergency rooms and ready to respond to emergency calls. And if we look at the Ontario Liberal plan and our platform, it is fully costed. Everything is in there. It's working within the existing budget and making sure that the priorities that we've heard at the doors are number one on our list, and that is why we have a huge commitment around hiring and training new healthcare workers as well as mental health care workers. We also want to build 15,000 more supportive homes for mental health and addiction, so we have the spaces for people to seek the support they need.
Thank you, Heather. Rob.
Part of the reason I'm a progressive conservative is that I believe in that well done is better than well said. I didn't coin the phrase, Benjamin Franklin did, but well done is better than well said. And if you read our budget, Mr. Bethenfalvy's budget, you'll see a roadmap to success. And it's about investing, not spending. 30,000 new beds will help industry support new beds in long-term care. $27 billion over 10 years in new hospital infrastructure. This is not just a Ford or McGuinty or Wind problem. This is a 30, 40-year-old problem. It needs to be fixed now. $3.8 billion over 10 years on a roadmap to wellness, addressing mental health and addiction issues like you're doing so well here in St. Thomas. Physical investments and human investments, 27,000 more doctors, nurses, PSWs, and nurse practitioners. Well done is better than well said. It will be done.
Thank you, Rob. Bridget.
I get angry sometimes when I listen to some of these legacy parties speak. It's not spending, it's investing. Well, doesn't that sound cute? It's still $27 million of your money. We need to rehire the nurses we fired. Priority number one. Then added 97 we fired during a pandemic that was so bad we were all dying on the streets. I have firsthand knowledge of seeing what the US states that remained open and didn't put these sanctions in place and how they recovered, and they're not suffering like we are. It is time. Open everything up. Let's stop what we've been doing. It didn't work. It prolonged things. I saw it firsthand. Florida was never closed. You were told it was. It was not. We need to get back to the basics. We need to put the COVID aside. Yes, there are still people getting sick. I understand that. But with the nurses that you decided were no longer viable members of the medical society, we have put ourselves in a crisis, a bigger one than we already had. Let's get people back to work. Let's move on. We cannot sit on this COVID train forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Matt.
So firing nurses in the middle of a pandemic was kind of crazy, and it was also pretty cruel to them, especially after they had been working through the peak of it without any vaccine or anything. But as soon as that came around, they didn't want it. Poof, they're gone. So we need to rehire those people, and we need to look at what the regulations are around making them stay home after testing positive while asymptomatic. We need to get rid of the bureaucracy. I'm talking to nurses and healthcare workers. They tell me all the time how frustrated they are with all the bureaucracy and red tape. Keeps getting in their way, slows things down, makes it harder to do their job. So we need to strip that out. We need to make sure people are able to do their jobs efficiently. And also, when we have immigrants that come to this country and they have medical training, I know a few myself that aren't able to work because their training isn't recognized. So we need to implement a better process to get them into the workforce, get them up to our standards if they're not already, get them trained, get them working, and bolster our healthcare workforce.
Thanks so much, Matt. I'm not going to give a chance for another 30 seconds on that. Selfishly, healthcare and its sustainability, but also its excellence in our province is near and dear to my heart. We do have one of the top performing community hospitals here in St. Thomas, first out of 74 facilities in the province in terms of ER wait times, or at least it was pre-pandemic. Before I give the chance to do the closing statements, and we're going to do reverse order that we've done throughout, so we're going to start with Malachi, Matt, Bridget, Rob, Heather, Andy, then finish with Dave. Just wanted to again recognize our sponsors, London St. Thomas Association of Realtors, the Elgin Business Resource Center and Economic Development St. Thomas. Again, thank you. This wouldn't be possible without your support. Malachi, touch on whatever you want. Wow us, get elected, do your thing.
To sum up everything, anybody that's an elected official has to have humility. They have to have humility in terms of, I do not know. And the only way for me to know is bring in the individuals that do know. I may think I know, but I ain't there. I ain't there every single day. I ain't on the front line every single day. I may be on the committee, but I ain't there. So we have to have humility. The second part is that we have to bring back humanity. In terms of if somebody is suffering, you have to have compassion for that individual. In terms of if somebody is dealing with mental health, you have to be able to put yourself in that person's position in order to understand. And when I say we do not know, it's because we do not know. We're not that individual. We do not wake up every single morning in that person's shoe. Regardless how much training you got, you are not that person that's suffering. So in order for that person to be able to make it, we have to come to them and say, you know what? Let me know what you need. The consensus party, that's what we are. What do you guys need? What do you need to survive? What do you need for your family? And the only thing I and my party is allowed to do is to listen to you and make it happen.
Thank you, Malachi. Matt, closing remarks.
So everyone's lives have been disrupted over the past few years, and not necessarily by a virus, but by the government's response to it. Most decisions were made out of fear and covering their own behinds, rather than pragmatically and using rational thought. Heavy-handed, life-altering measures were forced on us with no hard data to justify them. Rhetoric from the media and politicians stoked division among people, pitting us against each other. While we were facing joblessness, loss of businesses, and loss of loved ones, politicians never lost a paycheck and even gave themselves raises. If you're happy with what we've experienced over the past few years, and the past decades for that matter, you have the establishment party options to vote for. If you want more control over your own life, less government interference, lower taxes, less debt foisted on future generations, control over what and how your children learn, transparency and accountability in government, and representatives that will actually listen to your concerns and take your opinions into consideration, you have me and New Blue standing up for you. The other candidates may be great people, and they may be in it for all the right reasons, but at least with the establishment parties, they must toe the party line. Dissenters are not tolerated. We've witnessed over the past few years people getting kicked out of their parties. New Blue encourages free thought and standing up for the people that elected us. If you want something different, you have to vote for something different. The only wasted vote is voting for a party that doesn't represent your values.
Thank you, Matt. Bridget.
Thank you again for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak. On June 2nd, you have a choice. You can re-elect a government that has proven that it does not listen to its citizens, that it takes extraordinary measures against those that do speak out. With Bill 100, they can take your house, your car, and your bank account. As a sanctioned citizen in this province who has had that happen to me and had to scramble on figure out how to pay for diabetic medication for my husband, the government nearly killed him. And that I will not stand for. And that is why I'm here. That is why I'm here to fight for you. I will not let them do that to you if you disagree with them. When our politicians forget that they are servants to us, they are no longer effective government. It is no longer a democratic place. I'm sorry, I get a little emotional when I talk about my husband. Our schools are under attack with the PC government. They promised us reform, and yet children go home with sheets regarding masturbation. Not with the Ontario Party. You will have choice. You will not be locked down. You will not be restricted, and your family members will never die alone. I promise you. You have a choice. You can vote for the legacy parties that have given you decades of promises and have not fulfilled them. We're still waiting for Bucket Beer, by the way, Rob. The Ontario Party will provide you with the opportunity to excel in your community, meet your expectations, and grow. Our policies are separate from theirs. We have family, faith, freedom, financial responsibility, truth, and transparency. We'll also allow you to recall us and kick us to the curb, should we not?
Thank you, Bridget.
And I apparently just got kicked to the curb.
All righty, Rob.
I'd never kick you to the curb, Bridget. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a clear choice on June the 2nd. You can choose an NDP or a Liberal government that will raise your taxes, that will intervene more in your life and your businesses than you have before, as we witnessed in Ottawa and we witnessed for 14 and a half years under McGuinty and Wynne. Or you can choose the progressive conservative option that will keep your taxes lower, will invest, not recklessly spend, in our future, and will build a better economy, better jobs. That's where this province's future is. We also have a leader that is proven. We don't need to change. He understands the 5 pillars we represent: building our economy, investing in infrastructure, working for workers, a plan to stay open, and keeping costs down. I humbly ask on June 2nd to consider voting for Rob Flack, your progressive conservative candidate, as your next MPP, and I make you this commitment. If successful, I will work tirelessly representing the interests and the people of Elgin-Middlesex-London with my heart and soul. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Heather.
So we all need to ask ourselves a few questions. What kind of community do we want? And what kind of a province do we want? Where do we see our community and our province in 5 years, or in 10 years, and beyond? I want us to have a community and a province where no one is deprived of the resources, means, choices, and ability to achieve and maintain self-sufficiency while being an active participant in society. Each day, many in our community have to make those tough choices, like whether to pay the rent or buy groceries. And we all deserve a safe and secure home, enough money to feed our children, and the ability to get to the place of work easily and affordable. I believe in ensuring that Elgin-Middlesex-London maintains its enviable quality of life and provides a home for businesses of all sizes to grow, prosper, and create jobs. I will bring the voice of our rural communities to the table and advocate for solutions that fit our needs. I have the experience to make this happen. We need to do better, and we can do better. Together, an Ontario Liberal government will fight to strengthen public health care, deliver quality education, grow our economy, and protect our environment for generations to come. Our fully costed platform is available on OntarioLiberal.ca. Please take the time to review it and see how we together can make Ontario a place to grow again. I humbly ask for your support at the polls on June 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. All right, Andy, I'm not going to congratulate any other candidate besides you doing so well over the phone, but you've got your last 2 minutes to close.
All right. Well, thanks again for putting up with me and my COVID scare. It's not easy for me to talk to people with over the phone, but I really look forward to meeting all of you and talking with you. I guess what I have to say is I've spent the past 12 years at West Elgin Community Health Center advocating for a fairer system. I've been advocating for a fairer treatment of people who need our help. I believe that COVID showed that we need to do a better job of taking care of each other and ourselves and our neighbors who need it the most. So we are proposing to double Ontario Disability Support Program, Ontario Works, increase minimum wage to make it a more fairer system for the people who haven't had a voice and who need our support. I would ask that you also think about how we can change and make our true universal healthcare system by bringing mental health care, dental care, and pharmacare into OHIP so that you do not have to pay for those out of your pocket. And finally, I would ask that you think about our kids and our grandkids and what kind of future we're building for them. We need to act on climate change now. Too many governments have said they would do something and they haven't. And I will close by reminding people that the NDP currently have 40 seats and the Liberals have 7. So if you really want change, you need to vote for NDP on June 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Dave, close us out.
There's a basic law of life that says the more you do of what you're doing, the more you'll get of what you've got. So the lesson is that if you're really, really happy with what you've got, keep doing what you're doing. So if you're really, really happy with what you've had in provincial governance over the last 15 years with the Green Energy Act and gas prices what they are these days, with all the business shutdowns and job losses, masking mandates, vaccine passports, and all that sort of thing, keep doing what you're doing. Keep voting for that. If you're not happy, then change what you're doing. And the question is, and Rob alluded to this when he mentioned the 3 big parties and marginalized the rest of us, and I suppose I could take objection to that, but the fact is he's right. It's going to be one of the big 3 parties that gets in. So the question is, why would you vote for one of a fringe candidate? And after the last election, the Conservatives were having, shall we say, some leadership challenges just before the election. They didn't really have time to develop a proper platform. So after the election got in, they started looking at the Freedom Party platform, and they were lifting one plank after another and implementing it. And we're saying, yay, we get what we want without having to go and sit in Queen's Park for 4 years to get it done. Because enough people voted for the Freedom Party to send the message to the Conservatives that, hey, there's a big group of people here that don't like what you're doing, but they do like what these folks are proposing. And the other thing is that the Freedom Party had a really good relationship with Jeff Urick, and I hope we'll continue to have a good relationship with Mr. Flack. So the thing is, if you're not happy, there's a few things you can do. You can spoil your ballot, which just gets a tick put on a sheet and another count for a spoiled ballot, or you can decline your ballot, same thing, declined ballot, doesn't accomplish anything. Or you can vote for one of the other parties with a platform that you are sending a message to the party that eventually prevails to say, hey, look at what these folks are doing because we like this, and maybe you should implement some of it. And in closing, I'd like to thank Paul and the sponsors for inviting me here. And I would like to thank all you folks for showing up, because speaking to an empty room is really demoralizing. And I'd like to thank you for all for laughing when I hoped you would laugh.
Awesome. A round of applause for all the candidates. Best of luck, everyone, and I can't wait to work, with all of you ultimately, but the successful candidate in particular. Have a lovely night, everyone.